Vapor X or Vapor X Knit? That is the question. Here we go.
Today we have a great on-court comparison of the Nike Air Zoom Vapor X and Nike Air Zoom Vapor X Knit, featuring the Tennis Pro Dock Playtest, side-by-side test, suicide test, serve test, and infrared test. And in about 2 weeks, we'll be cutting these in half for a teardown and durability test. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you don't want to miss it.
So Nike designed the Vapor X as a speed-focused performance shoe, their flagship shoe. That's exactly what it is. It cuts well, it's fast, it's really stable underfoot, it breathes well, it's really comfortable to put on, and has no break-in time. When you're playing in it, you really feel light on your feet. When you're bouncing on your toes, the shoe isn't giving a lot. The upper stays nice and snug with their lacing system. The only bad part about the Nike Vapor X is it's got mesh that goes almost all the way to the toes. Now, they do have this little piece of midsole that comes up over the toe box to aid in some durability. However, one of the main complaints of the Vapor X's is if you toe drag, you slide on hard courts a lot, this can wear a little bit. That's why they made the Nike Vapor X Knit. They have this knitted material in the upper, as well as this foam rubber in the toe box that gives it a little more durability. Now, that does come with some sacrifices, mainly weight, break-in time, and just overall feel on the court. When I was playing in the Nike Vapor X's, the original, I felt so light on my feet. I felt like I could be wearing these out. They're so comfortable. They're almost like slippers. But they're stable and they breathe well. I never felt like my foot was overheating even when I was wearing thick socks. Whereas in the Vapor X Knit, when I was running around in them, they still felt nice and speedy and very stable. That midfoot shank is the same that's in the Vapor X. They just felt a little more sluggish than the Vapor X's do. Now they're both very, very speedy shoes and they both cut very well. However, during the play test, I would say I had a noticeable improvement in my maybe psyche, but in my movement in the original Vapor X's. So I think one of the best ways to tell the differences between these two shoes is, why don't we just put them on side by side. So one thing I noticed is on my right foot is the Vapor X Knit. This actually does feel a little heavier, a little more constricted because of the knitted material. The left side, which is actually my wider foot, actually feels better in the Vapor X. That's interesting. So in terms of weight, the Vapor X Knit comes in at 14.3 ounces, whereas the Vapor X comes in at only 13.6. Now, even though my right foot does feel a little more snug in the Vapor X Knit, neither of them feel narrow. Now, these shoes are typically built as more of a narrow shoe. However, I had absolutely zero break-in on the Nike Vapor X and just a little bit on the Vapor X Knit. So, a little bit of a surprise to me. The Vapor X Knit had about 45 minutes of break-in time right where the fifth toe bends, as well as under the big toe joint. I think with the big toe joint, it was all this toe drag material that they have up here, and I think just some of these pieces irritated my big toe joint for a little bit. They felt nice and wide. The Vapor X's felt a little wider than the Vapor X Knit. I think that's just because the forefoot and the upper of the shoe just expands and is a little more forgiving than the Vapor X Knit, which has that knitted material as well as the sock liner. Now what's interesting is the Vapor X Knit has a sock liner, which is supposed to keep your foot a little more snug. However, it's a slicker material, and therefore the coefficient of friction is a lot less in that shoe. So my heel actually moves more in that shoe than it does in the Vapor X. So that's kind of interesting that the shoe that's supposed to keep your foot more snug actually feels like it's moving around more. So both the Vapor X and the Vapor X Knit have the same outsole tread pattern, more of a linear tread pattern, not necessarily a herringbone, but it is chunky enough for clay and gripping hard courts as well. They also have some of these diamond studded pieces here in the heel as well as into the arch. Now this material is more of a TPU material. It's harder than the rubber on the rest of the foot. This is to save weight, also to give the shank and the arch of the shoe a little more stability without having to sacrifice weight of the shoe, which is a design I really like. So now on both of these shoes, the heel counter is pretty stiff. It locks your heel in.
And additionally, the Air Zoom Vapor X knit has some additional foxing around the heel counter. However, it's not stitched into anything, so it doesn't really make a difference in terms of stability versus the original.
However, the shape of these shoes does put your foot in a foot flat position, and so they're not very good for players with a flat foot. If you have a neutral to a high arch foot or C-shaped foot, they're gonna be fine. However, if you have a flat foot, these could actually give you a little more knee or ankle pain, arch pain later on. Even if you do have that hypermobile flat foot, if you put an orthotic in this with an extrinsic post, a nice stiff post on the inside of the shoe, I think you will be just fine. So let me know in the comments down below, do you think that the Vapor X knit is worth the price tag, or are you going with the Vapor X original, or neither? And the midsole of these shoes is very comfortable. I can definitely feel a nice response from it. However, this little arch guard that comes up here on the midsole, when I'm looking at these shoes on TV and I'm looking at pros wearing them, it looks like this is more of like an arch support, almost an orthotic. However, it's just foam. It's just a little foam material, so it's not enough to hold your arch up or give you any arch support whatsoever, because as you can see in the video, you are seeing my foot roll in on these shoes quite a bit. Now, it doesn't bother me because I have a high arch foot, but somebody with a flat foot, like I said, not gonna like these at all unless you have an orthotic in them. Now you notice on the midsole, on the Vapor X, it's that white poly material versus on the Vapor X knit where it's clear. Now it looks like the Vapor X knit, the material is a little harder and more stable. However, I did not find that to be the case when playtesting the shoes side by side or on their own.
I came in at $1466 on the Nike Air Zoom Vapor X and $1484 on the Nike Air Zoom Vapor X knit. Now, the caveat to that is I performed the suicide test on the Vapor X second, and I was still faster in that shoe. So that does tell you something.
Now, the great thing about both these shoes is their lacing system. It's a real departure from the Nike Air Zoom Vapor Cage 4s, which lacing system I really can't stand. These lace right into the upper, and the lacing goes all the way down almost to the midsole, right? This is gonna give you such a nice uniform tightness in the shoe, and it's gonna give you a lot more stability. In terms of lacing, these laces and this lacing system has got to be the best that Nike has.
During the serve test, I got 22 centimeters of height from the Air Zoom Vapor X knit and 21.5 centimeters from the Nike Air Zoom Vapor X. Now this was to be expected, not much difference. Our infrared test started with an on-cord temperature of 86.9 and 76.2 in the Vapor X and 76.6 in the Vapor X knit, and to no surprise, the Vapor X knit heated up 2 degrees warmer to 94.8 versus the Nike Air Zoom Vapor X at just 92.8.
So one thing I liked about both of these shoes was the feeling of the midsole and the outsole underneath of my foot. It felt much more like a platform underneath of me, right? It felt just a little bit of that stiffness in the shank and in the outsole of the shoe. And I liked that for running side to side, getting balls, or moving back and forth between net. These are definitely performance speed shoes, both of them. Now the Air Zoom Vapor X knit does have some durability features that the Vapor X does not, namely the knitted upper and those kind of aggro crag pieces of rubber on the top. However, I can't help but thinking that Nike may have been trying to solve a problem that just didn't exist with the Nike Vapor X. It's a much lighter feeling shoe than the knit, and it's a much wider feeling shoe. And I think I just lost my ball. Now there's a reason you see a lot of professionals playing with the Nike Vapor X, and that's because it just ticks all the boxes. It's comfortable, there's really zero break-in, the outsole is great, it fits a little wider, it's fast, it doesn't feel flimsy, it's got a real solid feel to the shoe. So I think if you're looking for an all-around player shoe, the Nike Vapor X is really just that, a player's shoe. So I think if you're really focused on durability and that's your only focus and you want a Vapor X shoe, then definitely the Nike Vapor X knit is a good place to start. However, if you're looking for performance in the shoe and just being able to be comfortable, then the original Nike Vapor X is probably your shoe. All right, up next, I'm really excited to cut into the Asics Court FF2 that is coming up very soon. As soon as I get back into my workshop, those things are going under the knife. So if you don't want to miss that video, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get notified. All right, I hope everyone has a great day, great night where you're tuning in from, and I'll see you next time.